Hey there, welcome to the deep dive. We take a bunch of your sources and we pull out the most interesting information. And today we're going to dive into the world of Erico Verissimo.
A big name in Brazilian literature.
Right, a big name in Brazilian lit. So we are going to give you a well-rounded understanding of his work.
And to do that, you've given us a really interesting mix of materials.
Yeah,
We have excerpts from his novel O Tempo e O Vento,
which translates to.
Time in the Wind, and also some biographical information on the author himself.
So we're kind of doing like a two-pronged approach, exploring the historical context that shaped his writing.
And then diving into those recurring themes that
Yeah.
make his work so captivating.
Exactly. And speaking of historical context, one thing that jumped out at me was the setting of the novel. It takes place in Rio Grande do Sul,
A state in southern Brazil.
a state in southern Brazil,
Hmm.
during a period of intense revolution and societal change.
Yeah, we're talking about a time spanning from the early 1920s all the way to the 1940s.
Yeah, the excerpts jump between years like 1923, 1924, then 1930, 38, 39, 43, 44.
Wow.
Talk about a tumultuous era. You had the rise of new political ideologies, the lingering effects of World War I,
And clash between modernization.
and traditional ways of life.
Yeah.
So Verissimo really seems like he wants to capture the energy of the time.
And show how these larger forces impact the lives of everyday people.
Exactly. And he does this through the lens of a multi-generational family, the Cambarás.
They're like our window into this world.
Right.
We see them navigating love loss, political upheaval,
Those big questions about family.
family legacy and individual choices versus societal expectations.
It's interesting because even though these characters are living through extraordinary times, they're dealing with problems that I feel like we deal with today.
Absolutely.
You know,
A
how do we make sense of our place in this world?
rapidly changing world.
Rapidly changing world.
Yeah, how do we balance personal desires?
With the expectations of family and society.
Exactly, and that's where Rodrigo Cambará comes in.
Oh, yeah.
This character really jumped out at me.
Okay.
He seems to be at the heart of the drama, always wrestling with his own contradictions.
Okay.
Yeah, you see this internal conflict going on with him.
Yeah.
I thought was really fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Rodrigo, I mean, he's living this life of privilege, but he's struggling with it. You can tell.
Oh, yeah.
He's questioning everything, his place in society, his family's legacy, even his own moral compass.
Absolutely.
And that scene where he meets Yuka Cristo.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a stark contrast between Rodrigo's world and like the really harsh realities faced by many Brazilians at that time.
Right, and it makes me think Verissimo is intentionally using those moments of juxtaposition to highlight social inequality.
Yeah, it seems that way. It's interesting because we also have biographical information about Verissimo.
Right.
And it appears his own life wasn't always easy.
He faced challenges early in his career, even experienced bankruptcy at one point.
Oh, wow.
He lived through World War II, a truly tumultuous time for the whole world. So when you consider his personal struggles alongside his social commentary, it just adds another layer of depth to his work.
Yeah, it's not like he's writing about these issues from some detached academic perspective. He's lived through them. He's felt them.
He's felt the weight of them.
Right. And speaking of authenticity, did you notice how much Verissimo seems to be preoccupied with heroism, both in the novel excerpts and his own life story?
Oh, absolutely. It's like he's constantly questioning what it really means to be a hero. There's the mention of Luis Carlos Prestes, a real-life revolutionary figure who led a column of rebels on a march across Brazil,
Yeah, then you have characters like Licurgo Cambará.
and the real-life Cabo Carré, both of who seem to die heroically in battle. But I get the sense that Verissimo is going beyond those traditional, almost romanticized ideas of heroism.
Yeah, I agree. He's presenting all these different facets of courage. You know, what does it mean to be brave in everyday life within families facing moral dilemmas? And he's doing it without giving us any easy answers.
Yeah.
Which I think is really powerful.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that really makes you think,
Right.
what does true heroism look like in our own lives? But before we get too deep into that, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier. The sheer volume of Verissimo's published work is astounding. Novels, essays, travelogues, the list goes on and on. This guy was a writing machine.
Seriously, how did he find the time?
I know.
What kind of dedication and discipline did it take to produce that much work while also, like, living through these intense historical events.
I know it's inspiring and intimidating all at the same time, but it speaks to his legacy.
Yeah.
Erico Verissimo is considered one of Brazil's most important literary voices, and his work continues to be read and studied all over the world. And I think the reason for that is because he has this ability to tap into those universal experiences of love and lost family and the search for identity in a world that's constantly evolving.
You know, it's funny you say that because I noticed...
Wait, before you move on, I was just so struck by how Verissimo manages to weave those really intimate personal moments with the broader political landscape. Like, it's not just about historical events, it's about how those events shape individual destinies.
You're right. He manages to strike this incredible balance. Like, think about that scene where Rodrigo discovers the notebook of the young revolutionary who was killed in the attack on Santa Fe.
Right.
Here's this young man on the brink of like a violent battle. And instead of dwelling on like the fear or the horrors of war, he's writing about love, about waltzing with this girl, about the beauty of the stars.
It's almost jarring, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what was Verissimo trying to say with that juxtaposition?
Right.
Is he trying to highlight the human cost of war?
I think so.
Those dreams and aspirations that are cut short?
It's like he's reminding us that even amidst like chaos and violence, people still yearn for connection.
For beauty, for love.
Right. Those things don't just disappear because there's a war going on.
And there's this layer of irony, right? This young man so full of life, fixated on these romantic ideals, and he's ultimately cut down in his prime.
Right.
It makes you question those traditional notions of heroism we were talking about earlier.
Right.
Like, dying in battle doesn't automatically guarantee a glorious legacy.
Exactly. Verissimo seems to be challenging that idea. Maybe true heroism lies in cherishing those fleeting moments of beauty and human connection, even when surrounded by darkness.
You know, that scene with the notebook really felt like a turning point for Rodrigo.
Okay.
It's like it forces him to confront his own mortality, his own choices, and ultimately what kind of legacy he wants to leave behind.
It makes me think about how that theme of legacy plays out in Verissimo's own life.
Right.
You mean how he achieved such literary success, influenced generations of readers, put Brazilian literature on the world map.
Exactly. But his journey wasn't without its challenges. We know he faced setbacks early on, even bankruptcy.
Right.
Yet he persevered, and his dedication to his craft ultimately paid off. To me, that's another form of heroism. Verissimo is subtly highlighting the courage to pursue your passions, to keep writing, keep creating, even when things are tough.
I like that it's like a quiet form of heroism, but no less powerful.
Right.
It reminds us that legacy isn't just about grand achievements. It's about the impact we have on others, the stories we tell, the ideas we share.
Exactly.
And in Verissimo's case, those stories have clearly touched countless lives.
Absolutely. And I think his decision to focus on this multi-generational family saga is really clever. It lets him show how history repeats itself, how personal choices echo across time, and how certain patterns within families and societies persist.
Right. It's almost like cyclical. We see these same struggles, these same questions about identity and belonging play out across generations.
Exactly.
And even though these characters are rooted in a specific time and place, their challenges, their hopes, their fears, they feel universal.
Exactly. It speaks to the universality of human experience. That's why Verissimo's work continues to resonate with readers today. We recognize ourselves in these characters, see our own families reflected in their stories.
It's like he's tapped into something timeless.
Absolutely.
I'm also noticing how Verissimo masterfully weaves those intimate personal moments with the broader political landscape.
Yeah.
Like he's showing us how grand historical events impact everyday lives.
Right.
How they shape individual destinies.
He's a master at that, and he doesn't shy away from the complexities of Brazilian history, either the political turmoil, the social inequalities, but he never loses sight of the human element, the individual stories that make history come alive. It's like, instead of giving us a dry recounting of events, he's offering us a deep dive into the hearts and minds of the people who lived through those times.
It's funny you should say that because it's exactly what we're doing here, right? Immersing ourselves in Verissimo's world, exploring those layers of meaning, uncovering those hidden gems.
Absolutely. And speaking of hidden gems, I'm fascinated by Verissimo's portrayal of the women in O Tempo e O Vento.
Okay.
Characters like Flora and Maria Valeria, they're not just background figures. They really drive the story forward.
That's so true. Flora, for example, she's not just Rodrigo's wife. She's navigating the expectations placed on women in that era while carving out her own space within the family.
And then you have Maria Valeria, the indomitable aunt.
Oh, yeah.
She's a force of nature.
Right.
holding the family together through thick and thin. She seems to embody those traditional values, but also has this fierce independence that's really compelling.
And she's not afraid to use her sharp tongue and strong opinions to shake things up in the Cambará household.
No, she's not.
She's actually pretty funny.
She is, and I think Verissimo is using those moments of humor to highlight the societal tensions of the time.
Okay.
Maria Valeria isn't just a cranky old woman. She represents a generation grappling with change, holding on to tradition while recognizing the need to adapt.
And that's what makes her so relatable, right?
Yeah.
Even today, we can all relate to that feeling of being caught between the old and the new, trying to figure out where we fit in.
Absolutely, and I think Verissimo's portrayal of these women adds this rich layer to his exploration of family dynamics. We see the tensions between mothers and daughters, the bonds between sisters, and the complex relationships between women and their husbands. It's a very nuanced and human portrayal.
You know, something I've been thinking about is how Verissimo creates such a vivid sense of place with his writing. The way he describes the landscape, the weather, even the smells.
He's definitely a master of sensory detail.
It's so evocative.
He doesn't just tell you about the heat, he makes you feel it. He describes the wind whipping across those vast grassy plains, the pampas, the scent of coffee brewing in the kitchen, the sounds of music drifting through the streets. It's almost cinematic.
Right, it's like you're right there in Santa Fe experiencing everything alongside the characters. I was particularly struck by how he uses language to, like, evoke emotion. There were moments when I felt a real sense of melancholy, a recognition of the fragility of life, especially when he was dealing with themes of loss and disillusionment.
That's interesting you say that. I think that melancholy is a key part of Verissimo's work. It's like he's acknowledging the bittersweet nature of life, you know, the joy and the sorrow, the triumphs and the setbacks. It all comes together to create this rich tapestry of human experience.
You know, it's funny because even though we're talking about a Brazilian author, a novel set in a specific historical context,
right,
there's something so universal about his themes. Those questions of identity, family, legacy, love loss, that they transcend time and place.
Absolutely. And I think that's why his work continues to resonate with readers all around the world at the heart of it. Verissimo is telling stories about what it means to be human. He's exploring those complexities in our relationships, the challenges we face, the choices we make, and the enduring power of hope, even in the darkest of times.
He gives us a lot to think about.
Yeah.
I know I'll be pondering these themes long after this deep dive ends.
I think that's the mark of truly great literature. It stays with you, sparks conversations, challenges you to see the world in new ways. And that's the legacy that Erico Verissimo has left behind. He's not just a Brazilian author. He's a voice that speaks to the very core of human experience.
So to you, our listener, we encourage you to seek out Erico Verissimo's work and experience the magic for yourself. His novels are windows into another world, another time, but they're also mirrors reflecting our own shared humanity.
And as you delve into his world, consider how his exploration of heroism resonates in your own life. What does it mean to be courageous in today's world? Where do you find strength and resilience in the face of adversity?
Those are questions worth pondering. And who knows, maybe Verissimo's words will inspire you to find your own answers, write your own story, leave your own mark on the world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.